Hello everyone and welcome to yet another session recap. This time in Gray Eminence campaign, we had a new player join. His name is Doug, good friend of mine, and I really thought he brought a lot to the group. Especially with James being gone, there's a big void that needs to be filled, and Doug is filling that right now. And if James comes back, it would be great to have him, but I could actually honestly see us being okay without him coming back if life just got too bad for him and he couldn't make it back. In other news, Drew's character, Danner, is no longer with us due to some life complications. It has nothing to do with the group at all or anything like that as far as I know. So, the actual session, let's get down to that. So there was a 3-month time skip here, and I let the players email me what they wanted to do, and based on that, I gave some of them a +1 to certain ability scores if they exercised that ability enough. It's not as big as a level up, and I feel like I need to slow down the leveling up because this was session, it was either 14 or 15, and they're level 8 right now. Okay, I think they started out at level 3. Essentially, that means that there's only been every 2.33 sessions they level up, and that really needs to slow down, I feel, especially if I want to tell a longer story. So I did not level them up over the break, and I did not level them up at the end of the session. I think I will wait another session or two. And it's a good thing, too, because I just ran it by, like, the encounters I've been running. I looked up the XP, roughly what they would be, and they'd be so far behind if it wasn't the milestone XP system. But, of course, you reward things like role-playing and adventuring and undiscovering things, which is really what this campaign has been all about anyways. So, there was a time skip, like I said before. Now, the players themselves didn't really contact me to figure out what they really wanted to do with the town. They just said build an outpost, and they do have a NPC member of their council that is nobility, and she is familiar with maybe not building a kingdom per se, but she is definitely familiar with the inner workings of infrastructure and what needs to be done. And not to mention that she actually brought them most of their funds, 25,000 gold pieces, and she spent 10,000 of that gold pieces improving the land. So she built a manor, she gave money to a blacksmith, she developed farmlands in a district nearby. They got converted the outpost to a kind of military barracks. Not really military, guard barracks, a city guard. That's where they stay. If they don't have homes, they can stay in there and they can train in that area. And, a few other houses. Overall, their population is at 47 right now. So we begin the session. They find out that Alexander is gone. During 3 months, he never really showed any signs of wanting to leave. And now that he's gone, they're a little bit worried. But what's even more worrying, they can't directly look for him at this moment. They actually had to wait for Lady Torhana because her little caravan is approaching the caverns where the players are still staying. And she essentially says that Clinigan Foambreaker, the leader of the Dwarven faction, he is requesting your immediate presence. And this worries them a little bit because they don't know what to expect, but they go over there and they find out that the dwarves are just overjoyed with that they finally have a sovereign nation and that the players have given this to them. And so many of these other family members from Clinigan Foambreaker's clan and the other people on his council, well, they're finally trickling in. And one such character is Greem Ironfist, played by Doug. And he is a knowledge cleric, and he really shows his appreciation for allowing them to become a sovereign nation and finally having a place to their home. Here's something about the world that a lot of you don't know. Is the world itself, there are no dwarven kingdoms, at least not anymore. They are mostly subjugated. They are often kept in tight family groups, but mankind has always been scared of allowing dwarves to get together and start their own country. The closest thing they have is Torvoxel, which is actually ruled by a theocracy of both man gods and dwarven gods, although not really their gods, just the leaders of those churches. It's the closest thing they have. They're not really subjugated too much, but they definitely do not have a kingdom to call their own. So this is actually quite a big step, and I'm not sure how I'm going to go about building the dwarven kingdom, because that's going to be my creation. Players don't really have too much input on that, and I'm sure a lot of dwarves, as the word gets out, will want to go there. On the other hand, I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunistic people that want to try and take advantage of that. So be on the lookout for that in future sessions. Afterwards, they drink and they decide we should find our friend, or maybe not friend at this point, but council member. They are worried about him. The group has gone through a lot of shit, and with 3 months to think about things, I think the other council members have realized what a tremendous stress this has been on Alexander's character, or as he now prefers to be called, Eanos. So they search for him. Exaden, since James is not with us, becomes a DMPC. He tells them that he had some visions, or fortune was told to him about where Alexander might be, and described to them a place in the forest surrounded by lights, and then try to go to the center of the forest, he might find Alexander. But he and Torhana, Milton, Wen, Briar, and the little hag girl, and the Kuatoa, actually, I forgot to mention that to the players, all go to the town. So the party, they essentially get to Alexander. They see him just staring up at the tree, not really talking. And they watch this for about a minute. And finally, Alexander turns around and sees them. They have a good dialogue. And this is something I was really happy with on both John's part and Kevin's part, because they both kind of contributed to the downfall of the group in the game. In the game, not the downfall of the people playing the characters, but seeing Phil kind of go back and say, okay, I get that he might be a little fucked up in the head. All right, so I'm going to try to put forth my best foot as much as I can. But he still doesn't trust him at this point. He definitely doesn't trust him. But Alexander's thinking, well, this guy almost got our party killed, and we did exactly what he was asking us to a few sessions ago when they fought the ancient owl bear. And he just berated us all. And goddamn it, I want to get my age back. And little Jordan Cacklebrow needs some of this stuff to make me a potion of longevity, so I am de-aged a little bit. And so they both kind of contributed. And Alexander, that next session, did fight back with violence. And it kind of really tore the group apart in a way. So I'm really happy to see that this conflict is starting to be resolved. And I did talk to everyone individually about that the game is meant to be play for fun, and everyone seemed to hear it, and which is really good. And again, I'm just really proud of the group for doing it this way. They made some progress, and the thing is, it still accomplished what John wanted his character to be, which was kind of broody, mysterious, and actually kind of creepy, because he has this fucking wooden mask that's really, really creepy, and he just talks to everyone in a jovial manner now, which is completely bonkers. So he's still accomplishing what his character wants, and the group is not splitting apart. So they get some of it resolved, but there's bigger problems here, as in there are shambling mounds on the way to the town, and General Sertan, the treant, is not very forthcoming about where they came from or why they're so malformed and why they're heading to the town. But the players get there in time before they get to town. I did set up a little restriction. If they had a bad roll in the forest, it might take them another day. But luckily, because Fel has advantage in his favorite terrain, both grasslands and forest, which turns out to be the perfect campaign to do that in, they find them. They wipe them out really fast. The only problem that the players had was really Eanos. He got engulfed by the creature, and really that was something I didn't want the little shambling mounds to do, but they were just killing them so easy. I wanted a little bit of a challenge, and there was really no danger. They had a cleric with full health spells and they just had like 2 or 3 criticals on the big creature, and they just went into them. I even buffed them up. I made the Shambling Mound twice the hit points, and as far as encounter XP goes, this was a deadly encounter, supposedly. Definitely didn't seem like that. Again, 5th edition showing its ugly side. It's really hard to build an encounter to challenge the PCs just enough when they are fresh. I need a little bit more work on that, and I've really tried to balance the encounters these past couple of sessions that I've played. Pirates of Galar one, and this Eminence Grey Eminence, I changed the title. It means the same thing. And so I'm not too thrilled with the way 5th edition has the encounter building, but that's been a lot of editions, D&D editions, problems. So I'll get better on that. And again, I guess this wasn't really supposed to be a super hard encounter, although it did say deadly when I was building the encounter as far as challenge rating goes. I think because they were so fresh, they had sneak attack on them. I mean, surprise round. It really... They rolled really well. There was hardly a miss in the entire group, and I didn't hit them once with the big Shambling Mound, I think. Not once. And I rolled really poorly. So again, rolls are a deciding factor in a lot of battles. That should be a little bit harder. But that's okay. I won't ramp up the difficulty. I think I'll just try a little bit better to balance a little bit more. Maybe lower CR creatures with more enemies and do it that way. So they defeat them, they go in the town, they see it for the first time. And I just started drawing the town the day before the session, so I didn't really have a whole lot there. And I have all the buildings down that were going to be down at this point for a 3-month build. The manor got completed, the barracks completed, but it just doesn't look that good to me. And if you watch the session, it may look okay to you. I mean, it's better than just a blank piece of paper with a couple squares on it, but just barely so. And I need to learn how to do grass on maps a little bit better. I mean, I could just completely desaturate it, and draw a couple little symbols, but I don't want to do that. And I want to be a kind of a colorful map. So anyways, they have their first council session, and also, they have a couple inter-party banter around the town, and Alexander or Anos tries to go to the blacksmith, whose name is Yurik, and Kevin was like, yeah, you use that name a lot. And I don't. Yorkin was the name of the lumberjack that they killed, in a way. So anyways, they have their first council, and they came up with a name, and the kingdom name is Aether. And the city name is going to be called Estel. So Estel of Aether is the proper title. And I think it's a fucking just fabulous, fantastic name. I liked the whole contribution that everyone kind of had in there. Even Doug's character, who's not technically on the council, but they allowed him to be secretary. And he kind of chimed up, and I, through Lady Torhana, was like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Secretary, type deal, to try and put him in his place. But Fel was actually really defensive of this dwarf, which I was glad to see, because Fel and Clinigan are just really close as well, and this being a cousin of Clinigan Foambreaker makes it all the better. So it is here that they learn of lizard folk, which the lizard folk they never got to in the first chapter, and I had them pretty strong at first, and then they took a 2-month hiatus, essentially. This is when they went to go back and tell their friends and tell people that would want to join them to say, hey, we got something here. Maybe it was a little bit too preemptive, but I had to change some things to where the hags essentially cut down the ranks of the lizard folk because they're warring with the hags. And now that the hags are gone, the lizard folk are starting to thrive again and become aggressive at any scouts around the area. So Lady Torhana's scouts have not been fruitful in penetrating one section of land still. And the thing here is that because they took the 2-month stint, the lizard folk are very distrustful now. They once weren't a warring lizard folk tribe, but through the 2-month stint, only the strong survived, and so they became kind of a warrior caste. And then after the 2-month stint ended, time still went on. They finally took care of the hags, and then time rolled and rolled. And they never searched that area because they didn't have time, because events kind of quickly transpired. Which, looking back at that, I'm really happy that they did. I'm glad that Fel touched the gem, because it would have been a less interesting story if they were, okay, scout this, okay, I see this, scout that, I see that, blah, 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 blah. And it would have been a completely different story too, because if the Unseen had gotten the gem, other things would have happened. Anyways, I'm getting away from the spirit of this podcast. So then the players had this 3-month little vacation where their activities were ramping down. They went to Javar a few times. They scouted the northeast, and northwestern forest. And that was pretty much it. They went to town a couple times to check up on things. They weren't quite ready to take on that role. So the lizard folk just kind of rebuilt. And now they have a stronger fortified position. They have stronger warriors from the War of the Hags. And now they train too. They've had a few months to train, so they're stronger. Now they've realized the whole warrior cast thing could save them. And they've scared off the scouts. And there's a few other things I really won't go into detail because the players might listen to this too, 1 or 2 of them. And I don't want to spoil anything for them. Or you guys, really. I'll get back to that later. So the council finds out about lizard folk. They find out about dryads that are just been kind of playful at the meantime, but Lady Torhana says they might want to extend an olive branch or something like that. And also, they talked a long time about goblins. I think it was around 30 minutes or so where they just talked about goblins, and Lady Torhana suggested that they just take some of the goblins that are thrown into the pit and where they raise their young, and they just take them and try to educate them. Try to indoctrinate them with civilization, and then those goblins should breed and they'll impart civilization onto them, hopefully. And the group wasn't really digging her contribution. Fel and Aenos, everyone was really just on board to kill them all if that's what needed to be done. And so the goblins, they aren't producing as much gold as they should in that mine because they're just lazy. They talked about putting them in the salt mine, and then that would present a hygiene issue there because all the salt in this cave would be easy to mine. Goblins really mess up the place with their stink, with their fecal matter, with everything, and you don't want shit crusted salt. Okay, you just don't want that. So really, the council decided that they'll go into that, they'll look into that a little bit more, and the council session was over, essentially. Atlas did want to start courting Lady Torhana, and actually earlier in the session he gave her a really kind of Voldemort awkward hug type thing. You guys know the gif where I'm talking about it, right? I'm sure you do. Anyways, it was kind of like that, and he wrote her a letter, and she has not read it yet. I'm not sure how I'm going to respond to it, but it'll be interesting to see that progress, especially with everything else going on around them. It's very chaotic. And that about wraps up the session. They're on their way to go to Ortuck, although Fel keeps calling him Ortusk. I meant to correct him on that. I just didn't feel like it, I guess, because I didn't want to interject actually it's Ortuck. I'll get to it next time. Overall, though, I felt that this was one of our better sessions in this campaign. It had a little bit of it all. It had a lot of diplomacy. It had a little bit of battle, and a little bit, well, not so much of adventure. Not so much of adventure, but they did see new things. They saw the Dwarven Kingdom and how it's all for a month in, they've got quite a good spread, essentially. So that wraps it up, and as always, please like this video, although really just a podcast thing with just a static image on it, but that's okay. And comment down below. I'm really not seeing that as much as I used to. I don't know what it is. Maybe my viewers just don't really want to comment anymore about things. Maybe they're just content with listening, which is fine. But if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions about it all, or even just say, hey, good job, that goes a long way too. And if you're not yet subscribed, feel free to go ahead and do that now. All right, everyone. Until next time.